There's a lot going on in this movie.
It was like I was watching it for the first time.
I like this movie.
It has a special place in my heart.
Very close to my heart.
This was a good one.
I want to like this movie.
What? Seriously?
I loved it.
Very flat, kind of boring.
This movie blows me away. This movie turns me on.
Terrible. It is terrible. All these keys everywhere. Influences, baby.
Huge fan.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
Hello and welcome out there in podcast and YouTube land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, a podcast where two guys talk about movies and television, horror and science fiction, specific genres, key influences on those genres, hence the title, Johnny Has the Keys. Get it? There you go. Anyway, and then things that particular topic of the week influence moving forward in time. We've been doing it for quite a few years. If you're just joining us for the first time, though, we'd love to hear how you found out about us. And hopefully you'll like it and return and all that. But if you wouldn't mind leaving us a comment down below. And if you want to, subscribe, ring the bell. And if you wouldn't mind giving us a review on Apple, that always helps us get more people who find the podcast and can associate with us. If you're returning, thanks. Glad you're back. Good to see you again. We've missed you. My name is David. I'm here with my good friend Tim. We've been doing it for a while, but Tim, what have you been doing this week? You been doing anything fun?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's March 3rd, so it's spring in my book. So that's why I've got my tie-dye out.
And I'm dressed like a slouch just because of the topic. It's post-apocalyptic. So there we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
But before we get into the topic, we normally break the ice with something that we may have done or watched this week genre-wise. And I think you'll get a big kick out of the fact that I actually watched a sci-fi horror film called Alien Romulus.
Oh, you did. You beat me to it. And?
I like this film. How do I explain it? It's a great revisiting to many of the elements that made the original films, It and Aliens, so endearing. But it's a popcorn movie for sure, because once it kicks into gear, it's like a roller coaster ride, and sometimes logic does not necessarily apply. I think you'll like it though. Like
is that Fede Alvarez? Did he do that one?
If we're pronouncing it right, yes, it's Fede Alvarez. I think. If he's Hispanic, E's are pronounced A, so it should be like Fede, I think, Alvarez.
Yeah.
And it was also written by him, because the only other writing credits are Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, who did the original.
Yeah, from what I understand, he pitched it. He pitched it to the studio and said, "This is my vision, what I'd like to do." And they went, "Wow, nobody's thought of that one. Let's do that." Then.
Yeah, if I had one complaint, and I'll do a synopsis and everything in just a second, but my complaint would be that they should have let it breathe a little and not just been one thing after another. And it's okay to go back and hit an occasional trope from one of the more popular films. And but the thing is, he tries to hit everything. The only thing I don't recall seeing in this is an egg. He not only hits Alien and Aliens, he hits Covenant a little bit too. So it's like got a little bit of all aspects of the whole franchise in it. And of course, it's a 90-minute. Well, no, maybe it's a little bit more than 90 minutes, but it's not 2 hours. So it moves fast.
Interesting. That poster's the same color as his Evil Dead remake.
Yeah, I think he must like red.
Yeah. I haven't read any reviews. I've been intentionally not, but I've seen just some snippets that say returns to horror. This is definitely a horror movie more than it is a science fiction movie. I don't know if I'm just old, but the cast seems almost too young. When you watched Alien, that cast looked like they could be in their 30s or 40s because they're like seasoned blue collar workers. And these are blue collar workers too, but they just look like they're in their 20s. They look much younger to me.
but they're
Well, the
good. I
labor
mean,
pool has gotten younger as you go into space.
yeah, and there's all the trappings of the company in there as well. And is it Chari something? No, I can't remember what the name of the.
Watani.
That's it. That's it. The cast is great. Like I said, they're young. It stars Kaylee Spaney, I think, if you know how to say that, if I'm saying that right. She was in Civil War, which I have not seen yet, and David Johnson. Those two stand out in particular. That's why I just brought my attention to them. And there is a well, there's some things in it that are spoilers, so I'm not going to give it away. A synopsis is in the aftermath of the Nostromo incident in Alien, siblings Rain and Andy are losing hope of ever leaving the ringed planet LV-410. When a bold proposition leads them to the Renaissance, a derelict Weyland-Yutani, there you go, research outpost, a terrifying secret threatens to claim the lives of everyone who dare uncover it. Now, 37 years before Aliens, history repeats itself as a newly hatched xenomorph threat spirals out of control. Rain and her team of ambitious colonizers must confront the horrifying face of absolute terror. So it's basically some guys trying to get away from their commitment to the company, and they're going to steal some stuff off a station, and then when they get there, the station's abandoned, and there's a reason obviously for it, because all hell is broken loose because they were doing experiments with whatever they found from the original alien investigation. So, or expedition, I guess you'd say. Yeah. This movie only gets 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. I would agree with that because it's fun. It's strong. It's fun. It has a few gaps in logic. I can't describe it better than saying it's a popcorn movie. Just go in and have fun with it. So,
well, I will try to view it then. It is on my list, and I'm excited to see it. I just haven't had a chance yet.
It's on Hulu.
I will do that. I ended up watching, we've talked about hybrid genres and subgenres. This year, we're expanding out a little bit more into thrillers and or fantasy, depending on our horror or science fiction bin. This one is probably, I guess you would classify it as fantasy. It falls into that, but it's part of the Harry Potter franchise, I guess. But it's the last film of what they call the prequels or the Paris magic trio, which is the Secrets of Dumbledore. It's the third one of the Fantastic Beast films. So
I thought you were going to talk about the new cooking show on the Food Network. There's a Harry Potter cooking show on now, believe it or not.
Because food is magic. So,
yeah,
I guess. I don't know.
I will send you a link to it. I am not kidding.
That seems very odd, but okay.
It is.
Sure. I have always been fascinated with Rawlings' world. I think she was a genius, the way she put it together. I think it's amazing. And I think the craft of, as I've said, I think I've said it on the podcast before, if you read her books from beginning to end, you see her develop as a writer too. And as Harry ages, the complexity of the story ages, and also the narrative style ages, and it gets better and better. And these, of course, were written by her after the original 7 novels, and they were written as pure screenplays. So she wrote these for the screen. And it was good. I really enjoyed it. Ironically, an Alien alumni, Michael Fassbender, plays Dumbledore. And it's very interesting. It's a lot of backstory that she hinted at in Deathly Hallows, and this expounds on all of that. I think it has elements you would really like about it. Basically, it deals with a coming war between Muggles, which are non-magic users, and all of the wizards. And you see racism on both sides, and you see homophobia on both sides, and you see all of this. It is so topical for right now. It is crazy with
but there's
how
no
easy it
people.
is. Well, right. Ironically, you can transmute in in the Harry Potter world and become whoever you want, which is so interesting with her particular.
Just don't change your sex.
Right.
Sorry, I'll get off that.
No, I'm also listening at the same time. I found this wonderful collection of H.P. Lovecraft. And it starts with his first short story and it goes through all of his published works. And so I've been listening to it slowly. As this is a total tangent side note, but the editor of the audiobook is constantly talking about, well, you have to excuse his racism, you have to excuse his misogyny.
Oh, so
you
this
have
is
to
pretty
excuse...
modern. Is it a good narrator? Because most of mine are terrible narrators.
These are I'm on the fourth short story. I just finished. I did Dagon, and but all four are different. It's all different people narrated. One of them had sound effects even and everything. So it's very good. I'll send you a link. It's really good. But the prefaces to it are like when it was written, when it was originally published, who it was influenced by, who it influenced, including in the foreword, he talks at length about
Robert Bloch. And
yeah, how they were corresponding and they would edit each other and they would talk about it. And so it's very interesting. But anyway, he's making excuses all the way through of accept the work, ignore the artist, which is to me what happens with Kevin Spacey, with Joss Whedon, with all these canceled people that have done great work, but I may not agree with their philosophies at all.
Right.
And J.K. Rowling is one of those. She has, like you said, she's come out very vehemently against trans, and that's ironic that her characters are, I don't say gender fluid, but they're definitely very, very diverse and very accepting. And it's interesting, but this film is all about how a quote political figure can totally con the populace, especially the lower class populace that aren't in power and aren't rich and aren't wealthy, into believing that he is the one that's going to protect them when the entire time he has a plan to totally usurp them and destroy everything and start wars and do all this. And it's very topical right now. So I thought it was really good. I know that there are people that are Potter purists that don't like these three films, but I like them a lot. So
I think that
it's what Universal's New World is all about.
If you're ever going to get me to watch those movies, you're going to have to put them on the list.
I really do think you would like them.
I think I watched the first one, but that's the only one I've ever seen.
As I said, they get progressively darker. You would especially like the third one. The third one is directed by Alfonso Cuarón.
Okay.
The horror director. So
he's sci-fi.
Sci-fi. And he makes it really dark. He says this is a dark story. Prisoner of Azkaban is dark. And from then on it gets pretty heavy. But I think you would like it if you did it. But yeah, it's all, this one was very, I enjoyed it. And again, like I said, I think some people don't like these three films. They want the Potter franchise to be over. I can't believe they're doing a freaking series reboot of it, but never mind.
Yeah, it seems like the reboots are coming faster now than they used to. They used to wait a good several years, and it seems like Harry Potter has not been that long ago.
Well, I think the last one was 5 years ago, was the last movie.
You're talking about Fantastic Beasts?
No, I'm talking about Harry Potter. Fantastic Beasts was only like 2 years ago. This Dumbledore one.
I think you are in a time warp, dude. I think the last Harry Potter movie was more than 10 years ago. Daniel Radcliffe's been doing a lot of other stuff. I don't think.
Well, it took them 10 years to do it. So.
Right. But they started in like the early 2000s, didn't? Or no, maybe it was the late 2000s. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just thinking of the books. Well, because the books came out in the late 90s, right?
Yeah, but the books came out in addition to the films. So you may be right. I'm silly sometimes. I know that this one came out in 2020 was Dumbledore.
Deathly Hallows was the last one, right?
Correct.
That was in 2010.
10. Okay.
So it's been 14 years.
14 years since the last movie. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know about the Fantastic Beasts stuff. Okay.
And yeah, I can't imagine them rebooting it. To me, it's
pretty soon.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got an iconic actor already in that role. To replace him is going to be tough, I would think.
All of them.
Yeah.
All of them. Maggie Smith.
Don't even.
So how are you going to do? Interesting. Yeah, but yeah.
Okay,
that was my genre week.
Segues. I talked about something really dark in outer space, and you talked about acceptance, which
one.
both themes do tie into our movie topic of today, which is a little gem from 2017. It's an A24 film called It Comes at Night. Well, I'll give a brief synopsis of it because really it's a simple story. Basically, it is clearly after an apocalypse of some kind, most likely a viral apocalypse, because there is a very contagious and deadly disease out there that has wiped out most of humanity. It opens with the patriarch or grandfather of this particular family has got it, and he is put to death by the son-in-law, I believe. Yeah, the son-in-law, who is played by Joel Edgerton, and set on fire because they have gas mask on. They don't want to risk infection. These people live in what looks like could have been an old farm or something. It's an old house. It's big. It's got boards on all the windows, so you don't know what it is. It looks like it could be a zombie apocalypse. And they live their life. They only go out in the daytime and they stay quiet and inside at night. Somebody tries to break into their house. He claims he's looking for water. They catch him, tie him to a tree to ensure that he is not infected. So they leave him out there for a day or two. And then he tells them, look, I didn't know anybody was living here. I was just looking for some water. My wife and child are nearby, and we need water. We have animals we can trade. So the Joel Edgerton character, he plays Paul. His wife, Sarah, is like, maybe we should let them come join us. There's strength in numbers. And he's not really keen on that, but he gives in and goes to get the wife and child with this guy. On the way, they're sabotaged and shot at. So there's immediately some tension there because he thinks that they could potentially be in cahoots with this guy and that he's lying. But the guy swears he's not lying, and they kill the guys that attempt to intervene or to interrupt them. And you can see that there's paranoia being recognized from both sides of these two guys. But they end up taking the family in. Things are great for a while. They have animals. They have sort of a nice life. Then one day the dog gets loose and disappears. And then one night the dog shows up, but it's at a time where the child of the new couple is sleepwalking and has potentially come into contact with the dog, and the dog is sick. So all of a sudden, Travis finds the kid, thinks he's sleepwalking, takes him back to his room, and then doesn't realize later until that he is probably contaminated as well. So there becomes this instant. It's like when people talk about after somebody dies, how families change for the worse. This is before anybody dies. All of a sudden, these two families are pitted against each other. And Joel, the Paul character, of course, wants to kick them out. And it results in, well, I'll just leave it at that. That's the climax. And then the end of the movie we'll get to in a minute. Have you ever seen this movie?
Nope. Nope. I'd never heard of this movie.
Really? You've never heard it? Because the title's very familiar.
I think I may have seen the poster and the title. I'd heard the title, I think, but had no clue what to expect, what was happening, what was going to happen.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love going into this movie blind. This is the second time I saw it, so it was fun being able to watch for things that I had not looked for in the first viewing of it.
That would probably be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what
I
thoughts?
I had also never heard of this director before, Trey Edward Schultz.
The reason is because he's fairly independent, I guess you would say. He did two movies. One's called Krisha and one is called Waves. Waves is also an A24 movie, and both are highly acclaimed and have like been critic darlings or whatever.
So where does A24 find these people? Because
Yeah.
I had never heard of Eggers before A24, and then suddenly I hear
Really?
him. Yeah, I don't think I had heard of him. Didn't he do Hereditary? Isn't that Hereditary, or am I thinking of someone else?
If he's in Hereditary, he's a small part.
No,
We
no,
just
Eggers. Eggers did. The director.
Oh, you're talking
I'm,
about Robert Eggers. Sorry, I thought you were talking about Joel Edgerton. My bad.
no, yeah, no. So I don't think I'd heard of him before The Witch or before
No, I had
Hereditary,
not
any
either.
of these. We should do a Patreon on them just because I think A24 has such a track record.
I agree. And but they have so many movies now, we would have to like pick our five favorites or something or do a top
Yeah,
five, A24. Yeah.
top five A24 would be great. And Blumhouse has its category, I think. And uh, A24 just has this elevated horror element to it. Every one I watch, I go, okay, that's a horror movie reminiscent of a Flanagan approach that is elevated beyond a slasher, beyond a jump scare, beyond a simplistic run and chase. I think the
Mhm.
only time that I can remember they messed up is I'm pretty sure Vampire Ballerina was A24
There is
too.
a cat that keeps appearing behind you.
Yeah, that's where, right here?
That's so funny.
Yeah. Wait,
It
let me move.
comes
Where is
over David's shoulder.
he? He does, because he's sitting right behind me. But sorry about that.
No worries. It was
Uh
just funny.
the but I think the ballerina vampire one, I think that's A24 too. And that was to me a miss for them as far as their level of horror and scare.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's A24 or not. You're talking about Abigail, but
Yeah.
okay.
But anyway, I had not seen this before, so I went into it totally blind. I really, really, really liked his direction and his lighting. He used all natural lighting. When he's inside, they're in candlelight or they're using an actual gas oil lamp. And I think he used natural light for all of this. I didn't see that in production research, but it looked that way. There you are. Look at you. Pumpkin. Why get away from my neck? Never
You
mind.
mentioned where do they get these directors? I don't really know. I did a little research on this Schultz guy, and that movie Krisha was a short film that was really, I guess, well received because he ended up, I think, expanding it into a feature film. And then Waves is the movie that A24 did before this. And I don't think Waves is a horror movie. We always associate A24 with horror because they do really good films. So when we see a
Right.
horror movie that's really good, we're like, oh my God, it's A24. So the only background information I have is that for a majority of the movie, every time Travis is dreaming, the screen goes cinemascope
Yep.
and then transitioning out of cinemascope when he wakes up, which is a
Yeah.
very directorial type trick, I think. That's cool.
Well, and I've got a key for that later on. So,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yes, that frame ratio change was really cool.
Well, so I'm
And
taking it that you like the film.
yes, I did. However, man, it is depressing as hell. That's
Yeah,
why I picked this background. This is the same background we used for The Road
right. Which is
because
another key. Yeah.
Jesus, it doesn't stop. I look back at my notes and like at the end, I'm going, okay, what was the point? What was he trying to say with this movie? That there is no hope, that patriarchal structure doesn't work, that
Okay.
so there was so much I was trying to say, what was he meaning with this? That we will, even as personal as our family, we will always be paranoiacs. And if somebody else comes into our world, they're probably going to end up destroying it. It's just
Very, yeah.
bleak. It's really bleak.
You, well, first of all, I'm glad that you do like it because one of the biggest, well, a lot of people don't like it. And the reason they don't like it is because of the title. They want to
Agreed.
know what comes at night.
Yep.
And really, they think a monster is going to come at night. And there are no monsters in this movie, unless you
Well,
consider humans monsters.
I have that in my notes. I was going to bring it up. Is that's a deficit to this film? Is the title?
Well, see, I don't have a
Um,
problem with it. I actually think it's a great title.
okay, well then, what is it?
Well, that's one of the things that people speculate on, which gets people talking about this movie. What comes at night? A lot of people say it's Travis's dreams because he has a dream every night in this movie. And
Hmm?
it's usually a foretelling or clairvoyant type dream where he sees
To see
what
that.
potentially is going to happen.
Hmm.
But then there's also fear and paranoia come at night. That's another thing because I don't know, you're out in the world alone and you don't know what's out there. And at both times something major happens. It's at night when the Christopher Abbott character, I can't think of his name, Will shows up breaking into their house. It's at night.
Yeah.
When the
Hmm.
dog comes back, it's at night. So I don't know. It seems like you could ponder and say, this is what comes at night. This is what comes at night. I think the ambiguity of this movie is great. And I think the ambiguity is also in the title. So I think it extends from the title and the actual story alone.
All
And I
right.
love that they don't tell you that much. I love that they just throw you in there and say, okay, find your way out because you don't know what's going on at all.
Yeah. Again, another similarity to The Road in the fact that we don't know what caused this apocalypse. We are just thrust into it and we have to live with it.
Yeah, and I
And
think The Road came out before this. Didn't it come out in like 2009 maybe? Yeah,
I think,
I think. And this was 2017, almost 10 years later. So any scenes that stick out to you?
well, the opening is definitely a great sequence and a great scene. The whole, I want to say, death of the grandfather or the patriarch. That's an incredibly good scene. Of course, the very, 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 very end is so bleak and so depressing, but it's great and memorable. The scene leading up to it, the climax, the
In on the staircase?
well, from the staircase on, all
Yeah.
of that whole sequence is actually even before that, when he first confesses to Paul and everything, and he goes and starts listening to them at the door. Open the door. Just open it, man. That's all I need you to do. Da, 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 and you're just already tense and going, this is not good. This is not going to be good.
No. And then he makes him take his mask off. Oh,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure I read it somewhere, although I did not catch it in the film, I must say, that they were infected at the end.
I think they had to
Uh,
be because
I
Travis
mean,
was infected
I
and
don't
and
think
they
it
were around
matters.
him without masks too.
Yeah, I don't think it matters either way because the bleakness of it, of losing your child and all of that and everything that's happened to them, and they just are staring, vacant, dead souls.
Are you talking
So
about
it
the
works.
last shot?
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
just sitting across a table from each other, looking at each
yeah,
other, and then it goes to black, and that's it.
yeah. And you just go, holy crap, that was just so much. So to me, it doesn't matter if they were infected or not. I did get confused a little bit about this infection deal because was Grandpa infected at the beginning then?
Yeah,
It
they
would have
don't say
purged the
why or
whole
how,
film.
but he is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one scene wise I have that I liked, and then you can do yours, was the first tension at the table. Not the first meeting of the new family acclimating, he's giving all of the rules. And this is the
Okay.
way we do things here and what we expect and yada yada. And that was cool, but there's still tension there because it's like, are we really going to do all that? That's a lot of shit, dude. But okay, sure. But the
Well, it's
second
also
time,
paranoia on both sides again, too, because
Mhm.
they still aren't sure whether or not they can trust each other.
But the second big dinner scene after the dog, when they're all like, who do we believe Travis or not? Where were you? Who was asleep? Why are you accusing my kid of this? Da, da, da. The one that ends with him going, I think we need some time apart. You just go, oh God, this is not going to be a good. I love that whole scene.
Yeah, and the whole thing for those of you out there that haven't seen the film is there's a red door that, and this is one of the gaps in logic that it's the only gap in logic really that I can think of. It's a door that only Paul and Sarah have a key to, and they keep it around their neck. And he tells them that when they have this meeting that you're talking about originally around the table. But the night that
Mhm.
the little kid, what was his name? I can't remember. Anyway, it's Will's kid, the younger kid that comes to live with them. He
Yeah.
sleepwalks and comes into contact with the dog. Well, how did the dog get in? How did the door get unlocked? That kid didn't have the key. So that's my one question is how did that door get
Mhm.
unlocked? That's the only
Yeah.
thing about this movie that bothers me. But anyway, Travis doesn't know that the dog has gotten let in by the little kid and sees him and just basically holds his hand and walks him back to the room so he can go back to sleep. He thinks he's sleepwalking and doesn't
Mhm.
realize that they have both now been exposed to the disease because the dog got in. Or
Yeah.
the kid let the dog in. So anyway, that's my one gripe. As far as
It's interesting.
scenes,
I because I only saw it the one time, I
mhm.
didn't get the whole key thing. So I thought the kid had let the dog in. So I didn't think there was a key. I thought there were two doors and the bolt is really high. You would have to really, the little boy would have had to really reach up to get that red deadbolt because there's the red door that goes to like what I call the airlock. That's my sci-fi science fiction side, but
maybe
that's
I'm
the interior room, and then there's an exterior white door that goes outside.
maybe I'm thinking of a different movie, but I could have sworn there was keys that only Paul and Sarah had, but I don't know.
Maybe
Anyway,
I don't know.
if that's the case, then then I don't have a gripe with this movie. But I think it's weird. I think it's odd that the kid was able to get that door open,
Yes, I agree with that.
regardless.
Like I said, it was really high, even if they
Hmm.
just had a deadbolt on it.
As far as scenes, there's a bunch. I love the scene where he decides to take Will and go get the wife and kid, and they're just driving down the road, and all of a sudden that window just shatters beside him.
Oh
That
yeah.
that scared the shit out of me, and it was like they're being shot at, and they have to pull over really fast, and he jumps under that truck like really quick, crawling commando style, and gets his shotgun out and starts shooting at these guys, and they kill them both.
Hmm.
But you immediately think, are those guys in cahoots with Will?
Oh yeah. So set up like that. Really
Right.
good.
And it's because we watch The Walking Dead, and that shit happens all the time on that show.
Well, also Will is directing them to where his family is. And so you get the impression Will set them up for an ambush,
Right.
set Paul up for an ambush. Yeah.
Right. Even though no one would know exactly what time they would be going or anything.
Right.
So
Right.
so he's got negative and positive on his side in both ways, actually. What else? I love Travis's dreams.
Yeah. They're all really, really cinematic and very interesting.
I love that he's got a crush on the girl, Will's girlfriend and the mother of the other little kid. And
Hmm.
and he has a dream that they're having sex and she starts like vomiting this black goo into his mouth. And you're like, that's
Well, we've all had
symbolic.
those dreams, Tim. I mean, come on. That's
We just did this in Prince of Darkness last
yeah.
October, vomiting into their mouths.
That's a great key, but John Carpenter should have watched this because this is done right. His was done wrong. So,
Yeah, absolutely. This has more menace and dread than Prince of Darkness ever had.
I have to say, a lot of that comes from Edgerton. He is just really strong in this movie.
Yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, if you want to segue into cast now, we can, because he is
Sure.
definitely something I would talk about. He plays Paul, Sarah's husband and Travis's father. He is an Australian actor, and his brother is a director. Did you know that?
I did not.
His name is Nash Edgerton. I guess he does predominantly Australian films because I'm not really familiar with him. But Joel, who I just think is fantastic, we saw him recently in a sci-fi film of yours. Which one was it?
Good question. I do not know.
Was it Oblivion? I can't remember. It was something that we
I don't
watched this
think he's in.
season.
I don't think he's in Oblivion.
Okay.
I can look him up though.
Yeah,
while you
look
do
him up.
that.
He was in something that we've covered this season already. I don't know that he's underrated. I think he's underseen because he's one of those guys where if he's in a movie, I'm going to really be into it because I just think he's strong. He in Henry III, so he is a Shakespearean actor, which explains a lot right there. His first international break came when he played Uncle Owen Lars in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. So that was, I guess, his first big American film, probably. Let's
Well,
see.
his credits are really extensive.
Right,
Actually.
but they're not like mainstream. You don't see him that often.
Well, we just saw him in The Green Knight,
That's what we saw him in. He plays
the king.
the
He's the
king.
Lord
Yeah.
or the Lord. He's not Arthur. He's the Lord. But I saw him in Red Sparrow. That's a pretty good espionage film. But his credits are pretty great. Great Gatsby, Zero Dark 30, The Thing. This was the remake reboot that we
The
want
one
to
that we
ignore.
watched, yeah, in 2011.
Um,
You know what I know him for? Probably the earliest thing I saw him in back in like the late 90s is an Australian film called Kinky Boots, which they
oh,
made a musical out of that
that
was
turned
really
into the
big.
Broadway musical. Yeah.
Yeah, it was him and Chiwetel Ejiofor. Is that how you say that? Chiwetel
Uh-huh.
Ejiofor starred in the original film that inspired the musical.
And
That's
went
all I have
away.
on Joel Edgerton. But any of you out there that want to mention anything, please do because I just think he's great.
Yeah, it's very good. Very
But
strong.
then again, this whole cast is good. I don't think
Mhm.
there's a weak link in it.
Yeah, and to play opposite him because he has so many layers he has to play in this movie of I'm afraid, but I've got to be the dad, or I'm really, really scared about this over here, but I'm angry about this. Just the levels he has to play and do. And then to do scenes opposite him would have been a challenge for both his wife and Travis.
Yeah.
So,
Like that scene where he's mad at Travis for running after the dog.
oh yeah.
But
But
then
you're also
later
wanting to,
he feels bad
yeah,
about it. And he's like, look, we'll go look for him in the morning. And Travis is like, not even looking at him.
yeah.
Yeah. The whole dad thing, the whole father son thing. Next up, Will, the man that comes and breaks into the house, he is played
Mm.
by Christopher Abbott. Most of us don't know much about Christopher Abbott, but I have a feeling we are going to soon because he is the Wolfman in the upcoming Lee Wanell film. That's the reboot
Mhm.
of the Wolfman franchise for Universal.
Well, there you go.
It's Andrew. It's the little kid. He is Kim's husband and Andrew's father. I knew I had his name in here somewhere. He's also in the movie Possessor, which is a Brandon Cronenberg film I watched several years back and remember liking as well. But I don't
Okay.
know anything else about him except that he's starring opposite Julia Garner in this new Wolfman movie, and I cannot wait
Okay.
because that's two big people that I like, him and Julia Garner. Carmen Ejigo, if I'm saying that right, plays Sarah, Paul's wife, of course, Travis's mother, and Bud's daughter. Bud is the patriarch that dies at the very beginning of the film. I don't have a lot on her. She is an English actress, but guess who well, she's divorced from. Guess who one of her husbands was?
Don't know.
Jeffrey Wright.
Oh, really?
Yeah, another
There you go.
great actor. They have two kids together. And she was also in Alien Covenant, which I don't remember that much, and something you just mentioned, Fantastic Beast.
Mm, okay.
So she may have been in the first one. I don't know. I may be pronouncing this wrong, but Riley Coe,
I think it's,
Keou or Keogh? Co.
I'm pretty certain it's Co. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She plays Kim, Will's wife, and Andrew's mother. She seems a
Mm-hmm.
little young. Do you know what her claim to fame is?
I know her from, what was it? It's in my notes. I was trying to remember where I first saw her. Fury Road. She was
She
one of
was
the
one of the
wives.
maidens or whatever in Fury Road.
Yeah.
Yes. But
Yeah.
do you know what her claim to fame is?
She's a model. No, I don't
She
know.
is Elvis Presley's granddaughter. She's Lisa Marie Presley's daughter.
That's it. Where did I see? Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Did she
I
do
don't
that?
I don't have a picture of her. I don't think. No, I don't.
Um, did she? Oh, yes. Okay. And you would actually like this, I think, just from your
Yeah,
musical
I don't have a
bent.
picture.
She did a television, I think it was a Netflix series called Daisy Jones and the Six.
Okay.
And it's a typical, do you remember what was the network that used to do it, but behind the music, where it was always an hour-long
VH1.
documentary, and it was always the beginning of the band and how they struggled, and then they made it big, and then they all got on drugs and died or whatever. It was all this, it's always this arc of the rise and fall of the band. They had
Right.
internal conflicts, or somebody slept with somebody else's wife or girlfriend. Anyway, this is a 10-part television series that's about that, the rise of a band and the fall of a band. But
Okay.
it is so good. She is the lead in it, and she does all of her own singing in it. It's
Okay.
really, really good. I think you would love it. It's
Oh,
called
and what's
Daisy
it on?
Jones and the Six. I think it was, I think it was a Netflix series. I'm pretty
Okay,
sure.
I'll look it up because I like her. I think she's got a really unique look. And as soon as I saw her, it's like, gosh, she looks familiar. And it's like you said, she's in that Mad Max film.
Yeah.
But
And you
yeah, she's
will,
Lisa Marie Presley's daughter. And Lisa Marie Presley had several husbands, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not really sure who her father is. But she obviously has got some talent from the
yeah, I
big
think
guy.
you'll like it just because it's all 70s music too. Hairstyles. It's a
Okay.
very Ty West must have done the production on it because you feel like you're in
Or like
1973
Almost
or
Famous,
75. Yeah.
that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that
Yeah.
Cameron Crowe movie. Yeah.
I just looked it up. You can find it on Prime too. It's on
Oh,
Prime.
okay, cool. Well, anyway, that's Riley Keough, if I'm saying that right. Kelvin
Okay.
Harrison Jr. plays Travis. I think he's fantastic. I had never heard of him before.
Never heard of him before. And
uh,
he was excellent. He
yeah,
was just so difficult to play a role that has very little dialogue, but has to have so much emotion.
yeah.
So
I would say
really
he
good.
is right up there with Joel Edgerton as far as the lead of this movie,
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much. And he plays obviously Travis, Paul and Sarah's son, but he was in the movie Waves. Remember, I mentioned there was an A24 movie that Schultz did before called Waves. So he's
Yeah.
worked with this kid before, but he's
Okay.
also in the upcoming Mufasa movie, the new Lion King prequel, I guess it is. So
Okay.
he's going to be in that. And then I really don't have any other people. Just there's the kid that played Andrew. There's the guy that played Bud, who here's a picture of him. Real scary picture of him.
The patriarch
Yeah,
guy?
the guy that dies he dies in the beginning, or he's killed, basically, put to death. But
That's
he comes
scary.
back in Travis's dream in that real scary picture behind me. This movie was nominated for scads of awards on the indie circuit. It won Best Indie Horror Film with the iHorror Awards, and it is not on the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die list. And I
Hmm.
kind of agree with that because if you were going to take this and The Road, I would put The Road on the 1001 Movies You Must See. But to me, this would have been a great counterpart to The Road if we did a double feature.
Oh yeah.
It's been very
Definitely.
depressing. But
Yeah. We would probably have to have therapy after it, watching it,
yeah,
but both of them back to back. But the thing about interesting in the way a movie is developed or the story told or whatever, there is this little glimmer of hope in The Road. I think because the son is so idealistic Are we the good people, Papa? Are we doing the right thing? His questions asking, are we need to help that old guy and feed him a can of peaches? There's hope in both the father and the son. I think the father knows that he may die, but he's hoping his son will go on. I think the son has hope that dad knows everything and he'll protect us and we're going to find a new place. There is no hope in this because the boy is having nightmares at night where people are vomiting in his mouth and his dead grandpa is coming back to see him. And there's just, and Edgerton is always, pun, always on edge the entire time. And so I think this is bleaker than The Road. The Road had my bleak nomination until
Dennis would hate this movie. Dennis doesn't like any movie that doesn't have a happy ending. I don't have to have a happy ending. I like bleak movies. I like dramatic movies. I like ambiguous movies. And to me, this hit a lot of my sweet spots. You get sucked in, and you know what it is? It's the mystery of it, I think, that I find enticing. Because you don't 100% ever know what's exactly going on. And when you do figure it out, you're like, oh, there's no hope. But that's okay. It's just a story.
You don't have to have those reasons. Plot-wise and story development-wise, you don't have to answer that question because you're just existing in what the situation is.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know, why did you set your house up with a little airlock chamber place with a red door? We don't care. We know, we assume why, or we make up our own reasons why, which to you, I agree. I think that ambiguity keeps it creative and interesting. And
right. And there are literary devices in there too. I just thought of another fucking key. And basically I'm giving all my keys away before we even get to them. But Flanagan's a great key, and it's the red door. What does the red door symbolize? It's the same in Hill House. It symbolizes something. There's a reason why he put a red door in there. So I think the literary aspects of this as well appealed to me. So if you can suck me in and make me like these characters and just get me lost in the story, I'm going to like this movie whether it has a happy ending or not.
Well, and help me because I'm vegging. Who wrote The Road? Cormac.
Cormac McCarthy.
This screenplay is very similar to him. His style of the patriarch who has to try to keep his family together under whatever situations and things he can. That's a huge key to this.
Yeah.
It's interesting. My notes, just a few of them are like.
It reads like Cormac. Yeah.
I like the fact that simple conversations around the table can be so tense. I knew that was going to fucking happen to the dog.
Yeah. That dog's always running off.
The use of natural light is awesome in this. And no horror movie should have pets from now on. That's just it. No horror movie needs pets because they will always die. And there's no point in doing that.
We learned that in Halloween with Michael Myers killing that dog.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I have a little bit of trivia before we move on to keys. And like I said, I think we've probably already hit all the keys in the whole podcast. But I've got the cast and crew signed a non-disclosure agreement that forbade them revealing what comes at night. Most people do think they're talking about Travis's dreams. I have an unstable internet connection. Are you seeing me?
Yeah, I see you now.
Okay, sorry. Something was going on. Travis in his dream never opens the red door, but the red door is probably a metaphor for death. Is a note I found on IMDb. But when he's finally shown sick at the end of the movie, he opens the door and goes inside, symbolizing his ultimate demise.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So
I
love this literary. It's like literary metaphors, basically. I love that. Out of 10 members of the cast, including Stanley the dog, 7 of them were killed. And then lastly, I have a rumor that I don't believe in all caps. And that is that Stephen King wrote the original treatment for this, but swore the production company to secrecy because he wanted to go uncredited. And I think that's bullshit. Because I also read that Schultz wrote it after his father died, and that's what inspired him to write it. So I don't see that at all. No, we would know if Stephen King wrote this. He wouldn't be able to keep it quiet.
Yeah, no.
So But that's all I have if you want to move on to keys, which is basically going to be a rehashing probably.
Well, I've got some new ones. Like I've got the
Okay.
bleakness angle of it. I assume they were influences, maybe even if it's subliminally on Schultz, the director and writer, because again, he's the sole writer, he's the sole credit for directing as well. So it's his vision, it's his story. And he wanted it to be this bleak at the end. He wanted Travis to die, and then both of them to either infected or not, their world is over. Their life as they knew it is over, kind of thing. So I've got The Mist, the other one that goes in my list of the bleakest freaking endings in history.
Very good.
Which is,
I
man,
agree.
and that was a choice by Frank Darabont, because that totally changed the Stephen King story. Man.
Well,
I've
it
even
gave it
read
closure too. That
Well, I've
story never
even
had closure.
Yeah, I've read where people went back to read the short story or the novella after watching the movie and went, "Well, it is totally different. I don't like it." I said, no, yeah, that ending was Frank Darabont. Same thing with Cloverfield. Cloverfield's another one of those bleak ending. Everybody we've watched from the beginning is dead in that movie, and Hereditary. But Hereditary also because of all the family stuff. This is all about family dynamics and patriarch and matriarch. And Travis is being comforted by his mom when his dad comes in and says, "I'm sorry about, we'll go looking for him in the morning." And he doesn't even look at him. There's all this, just all this family stuff wrapped in there. It's like, that's just tense. So yeah.
Yeah, because I think we talked about Hereditary when we covered how it's like a dark version of Ordinary People.
Mm-hmm. I've got the sequel too, Cloverfield Lane that we watched, the one
Mm-hmm.
about don't
Were
go
there-
outside.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar as far as a plot. It's dangerous to go outside. Cloverfield, 10 Cloverfield
Yeah.
Lane, is that the name of that? Yeah.
Yeah, except instead of her trying to break in and steal their food, they kidnapped her and put her in the bunker. But yeah, there's that.
It's funny that you mentioned Robert Eggers earlier, because obviously with scenes like that behind me that are done in natural light, that's Robert Eggers. He did that in The Witch. And then we also talked about Ari Aster, which the Hereditary theme is very similar in family. But this is also an A24 movie. And I swear, it reminds me of a Robert Eggers movie. And it reminds me of an Ari Aster movie. And I'm like, they need to just tap this guy to do another horror movie because he is good. He is really good at it.
Same, well, and another A24, Midsommar. Same way. Midsommar has that bleak, dark, even though it's all bright and sunlight, it's lit, it's bleak.
Yeah, in tone, it's the same. In visual, it's not anything the same. But yeah,
no,
I see what you mean.
Which is, I think we commented on the podcast, that's what made that movie so interesting, was he didn't do night scenes in that. It comes during the daylight.
That's hilarious. We could have done this with it as a double feature as well. A night film and a day film. Yeah.
Day and night. Yeah.
That's
but I totally agree with you. I think this is very Eggers-esque in the way it looks, or Ari Aster in the fact that he can have all these dynamics and this tension just from people sitting around a table. And it's just very well
that's
done.
that's another key to The Witch, because there's scenes of them sitting at a table in The Witch too, the whole family.
And that whole patriarchal authority figure thing happening where we have to, whatever dad says we have to do, even if we disagree with it, because he's the boss. I've got Silo in this. You haven't watched that yet, but it's it's the one that I keep telling you should watch.
I've read the book.
Yeah. But it's the same thing, that don't go outside the door. There was an apocalypse. We don't know what caused it, but don't go outside the door. You'll die.
Yeah, I was going to say, in that one, the thing is they tell you not to go out. You don't know whether or not you can or not. Very much like 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah. You mentioned Walking Dead, which of course you would have more examples, but this is definitely a Walking Dead episode.
Yeah, people are the enemy. People, if you go and meet new people, things are going to fall apart. Basically.
Yeah, to me, I would be much more like the guy in the road and the father, and you're better off just to kill them and take their stuff.
Or ignore everything. Or just leave.
Let's leave. Just don't pay attention to them at all because it will not be good if
Right.
they're involved. Yeah, I agree with that.
I've got Contagion just because there needs to be a viral movie in there somewhere. And the Contagion was the only one I could think of where there's a
Well,
dangerous disease that can wipe out humanity.
hmm
I'm
hmm
sure there's others, but that's the one I came up with. Go ahead.
I've got Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, I'm
And
curious.
it's because of this setup. We spend so much time doing a setup. This is our practice. This is our procedure. This is what works for us. When we let somebody else come into it, it disrupts it and
Yeah.
destroys it. Thing.
Except they weren't invited in Dawn of the Dead. They just crashed.
Correct.
Yeah.
It just crashed in. But again, it's that fear of the outsider, fear of, and not the evil, it comes at night, whatever it is, outsider. It's the human. We're afraid. What makes this whole subgenre of horror work is paranoia about other people and the primitive selfishness that they will show.
Yeah.
You talked about, God, you do yours. Yeah.
They're just the same that we've already mentioned. You mentioned The Road. I put Prince of Darkness because of what we said. I forgot what it was we said.
Puke it in the mouth.
Oh, yeah. The puking in the mouth. That's a Prince of Darkness key. And then The Haunting of Hill House, the Red Door key as well.
Yeah, Haunting Hill, that's a good one. And my last one, I guess, is the aspect ratio change. That was a big deal in Westworld. In season 2, but they would not explain it at all. And it took you like 6 episodes to suddenly realize, oh, so when it goes to this aspect ratio, that's this person's point of view. And you never knew that in the way the scenes are structured or edited or performed. It's so cool.
Okay.
But it would suddenly go into CinemaScope and then it would go back to 16:9. So I think cheating like that, the aspect ratio, there was something else I watched recently that was similar to that. Oh, we just covered it, Europa Report. Remember, it changed aspect ratios too.
You're right. It did.
When it would go to the different cams or to the interviews with the people back on Earth.
Yeah, because I liked it better when it was like at the end, when it was just normal.
Correct. You like that non-lockdown aspect.
Yeah, where it opens up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not cut off. What else? You mentioned, we both mentioned The Road. I mentioned the literary aspects. So I would think Cormac McCarthy is just a key in itself. Cormac McCarthy could have wrote this, basically.
Easily.
And
easily it has his whole stamp on it. Yes.
Yeah. And actually, that's it. That's all I have. Did you have anything else?
That's all of our keys. No, that's all mine.
Well, I tell you, I'm really glad to know that you liked it because I had a feeling you were going to fall into that group of people saying, what the fuck comes at night?
Well, yeah, I can agree with it, but that does not denigrate the quality of this film at all.
No.
It could have been called Nightmares or whatever and still been just as great to me. I do think the title's detrimental because we didn't mention like Quiet Place or any of those which are similar to this too. Quiet Place, again, one family, patriarch, don't go outside, yada, yada. When other people get involved, things go to hell.
Yeah, Quiet Place is a great key. I'm glad you mentioned that.
But
it's also
Quiet Place is one of those where the monster surprises us because once we get the gag, we go, oh, okay, now it makes sense and now I understand. It Comes at Night makes us anticipate the monster coming because we've seen Quiet Place or Bird Box or any of that post-apocalyptic, something weird is happening to the environment stories.
Yeah, I think it's genius as far as the title. I think it works on multiple levels. I think because you don't know what it is and because you're guessing, but also because it sells the movie. People are going to go see something because they want to know what comes at night. So it's like a publicity stunt and a great title at the same time.
And you're left with that ambiguity at the end of, okay, then what was it that came at night? So yeah, the ambiguity works once you explain it a little bit. So I go with you. That's what Tim and I think. What do you guys think about it? What keys did we miss? What influences do you think this movie has or has had on other films since then? We would love to hear from you. If you leave us a comment down below, and we'd also like to know what you think. We have no script going into this, so we ramble and jamble and do all of that, but we're glad that you guys go along with the ride with us to do it. If you're interested, we have a website that has all of our years and years and years of doing this. So go find another movie you have seen and like, and see what we think about that, and comment on it and tell us what you think about it. We also have a Patreon with both free and paid things, which help us support the show and keep going, and have other additional podcasts that we do on the side over there, other shows from Star Trek to X-Files and stuff in between. So we'd love to have you guys join us and support us and help us, and also spread the word, help us find other people who want to come and play movies with us. Tim, until next time, can we go back to space? Can we do something?
It's not space, but it's definitely sci-fi land.
No, it's not. It's sci-fi scary land.
It's dark.
It is really. Okay, but so we'll get so Tim's on a roll of the depressing movies that we're watching right now.
And we will see you next time.
See you next week.
All right. Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.